we get negative 4 plus I minus 28I plus 7I squared. Everybody okay with the foiling? Okay. So let's see. We know that this is going to be negative 7. So when you see that I squared, just kind of drop the I squared off of it and just change the sign. That's what it does because you're multiplying by negative 1 instead of I squared. Okay. So combining our like terms, we've got negative 11 minus 27I. Are we all happy with that one? Yay! Da-da-da-da-da. Okay, so we're going to write this one out as 8 minus 7I times 8 minus 7I. Okay, if you can do it without doing that, that's great. I love it. Okay, let's FOIL it. So we get 64 minus 49, 56I minus 56I again, plus 49I squared. Okay, it gives me 64 minus, what's 56 plus 56? 112 minus 49. So, boy, I'm having a slow brain day today. So this is going to be 15 minus 112I. Wow, isn't that weird how you just have like slow brain days? Like I really had to think about that one. 64 minus 49 should not be one you have to think about. Okay. We good with that? All right, number 3. Stop me if we're having trouble because you have a quiz following this. So you've got to ask the questions now, not during the quiz, right? Okay, distributing, we get positive 24 plus 20I plus 6I plus 5I squared. So that's 24 plus 26I minus 5. So that is 19 plus 26I. Okay. Okay, number 4, what do we do with that one? Because I've got an I in the denominator. What are we going to do? Multiply by I over I. Now, if you chose to multiply by 10I, that would also be okay. If you multiply by negative 10I, that's also okay. The goal is to get rid of the I in the denominator. So if you multiply by something else and get rid of the I, you could have multiplied by 3I over 3I. That would work. Okay. The only difference is anything more than 10I, you're going to have to reduce your answer when you get your answer. Okay. Okay, so this is going to be negative 9I plus 4I squared over 10I squared. So that's going to be negative 9I minus 4 over negative 10.
Plus 4I squared minus 4I squared.
I feel like I said minus 4I and I wrote plus, didn't I? Thank you. Minus 4I squared, and that's plus 4. Okay, so that's going to be negative 4 over 10 minus 9 over, or plus 9 over 10I. So we can reduce that to negative 2 over 5 plus 9 over 10I. All right. So I want to just take a moment to show you that we could multiply by other multiples of I. Because remember, the goal is to get rid of the I in the denominator. So let's just say that I multiplied by 4I instead of just I. As long as it's the same thing on the top and bottom, we're okay. We'd get negative 36I minus 16I squared over 40I, which would give me negative 36I plus 16 over 40I. So it's just 40, yikes. It should be negative 40, and there's no I, right? Okay. So when we do that, we end up with negative 36i over negative 40, which reduces to 9 over 10i. And we end up with 16 over negative 40, which reduces to negative 8 over 5. So negative 2 over 5. Okay, I'm just like, it's time to go take a nap. You know what it is? I didn't stop at lunchtime to eat, and my brain's just like, ugh. Okay, so we end up reducing to the same thing. Doesn't matter. The only thing you could not do would be something like I minus 10, right? You can't add a plus or a minus in there. As long as it's just some multiple of I, it's going to work. Okay, and if it doesn't work, how do I know if it doesn't work? What tells me it didn't work? If we still have an I in the denominator, right? So if I do something, if I multiply by something and I still have an I in the denominator, it didn't work. So go back to the drawing board and try something else. Okay? That's a very common thing in math. Sometimes we try things and it doesn't work. Okay. Okay. So here we're going to multiply by the conjugate of 3 minus 2i. Okay. All right. So I'm just wondering, do you know why we're allowed to, why do we have to multiply by the same thing on the top and the bottom if we're just trying to get rid of the I on the bottom? Why? Right. I'm actually multiplying by 1. You can't just randomly come up here and say, oh, let's multiply this by 2 and see and simplify it. You can't just do that. You're changing the expression. But in this case here, when we have the same thing on the top and the bottom, this is equivalent to multiplying by 1. 1 does not change the value. If we multiply by 1, it does not change the value. So in Algebra 1, why did we teach you about the multiplicative identity? Why did we teach you that multiplying by 1 doesn't change the value? A times 1 equals A, because that's the multiplicative identity. So that we know that if we multiply by anything in any form that's equivalent to 1, that's an acceptable mathematical practice. We're not changing the value. I could multiply by a cat over a cat. That's 1, right? We're not changing the value. We're changing the appearance. The value is the same, okay? Okay. So let's see here. We end up with 18 minus 12i minus 12i plus 8i squared. Let me know if I make a mistake. I seem to be having the brain fart day today. Okay, 9 minus 4i squared. Okay, that's going to give me 18 minus 24i minus 8 over 9 plus 4. So that's 10 minus 24i over 13. Putting that in standard form, 10 over 13 minus 24 over 13i. We good with that? Is that correct, Gavin? Okay. Am I boring you? Okay. What do we do on the next one? What's on the next one? Caitlin, what's on the next one? Good. Multiply by 9 minus I. And we get 72 minus 8i over 81 minus I squared. So that's 72 minus 8i over 81 plus 1. So we've got 72 minus 8I over 82. Is that right? Okay. So that's 72 over 82 minus 8 over 82I. So now I just have to reduce. So let's see. How's that going to reduce? Is that just going to be by 2? Wow. 36 over 41 minus 4 over 41I. Okay. Okay, number 7. Okay, number 7, we're multiplying by 1 plus 10I. Okay, and we get 8 plus 80I over 1 minus 100I squared. It gives us 8 plus 80I over 1 plus 100. So 8 plus 80I over 101. So that's 8 over 101 plus 80 over 101I. Yeah.
So when you're writing it in standard form, would the I be next to that 80? Why do you write it off?
The I is actually next to the fraction. So this is my A plus B I. So in this case, B is 80 over 101. Okay. Okay. Okay, let's go down to solving the problem. Some of these were a little challenging. So here we're going to add 7 to both sides. So I've got 9n squared equals negative 67. So then we're going to divide by 9. So we get n squared equals negative 67 divided by 9. And then we're going to take the square root of both sides. So n equals plus or minus the square root of negative 67 over 9. So the challenging part about these problems is simplifying the radicals, okay? So we've got a negative there, so right away I know that I'm looking at something I, right? I've got to take the I out. Okay, now I can't take the square root of 67, but I can take the square root of 9. What's the square root of 9? 3. So we've got the square root of 67 over 3. So our answer is n equals plus or minus the square root of 67 over 3 I. Okay. We good with that one? Okay, let's look at the next one. Let's see here. I'm going to subtract 4, so I get negative 10v squared equals negative 11. So that means v squared is positive 11 over 10. So this one's not going to involve an I. Taking the square root of both sides, v equals plus or minus the square root of 11 over 10. Okay. We cannot leave it in that form. Why is that? We're going to have a square root in the denominator. Yeah, so this is plus or minus the square root of 11 over the square root of 10. Okay, I can't leave that square root in the denominator, right? So we're going to multiply the top and the bottom by the square root of 10. Okay, I call that move and remove, right? We move the square root up and we remove the square root from the bottom. So this ends up being the square root of, we're going to do 11 times 10, so that's 110. And on the bottom, we no longer have a square root. Okay, so when we're looking at, let me just go back a minute, right? We're looking at the square root of 11 over the square root of 10, right? Move and remove. Move the square root of 10 up. Remove the square root from the bottom. Yes,
So I simplified the bottom square root, the square root of 10 to 2 square root of 5.
but it's not. 2 square root of 5, right? So 10 factors down to 2 times 5.
Yeah.
You did the square root of 20. Okay. Okay. So this is our answer right here. Plus or minus the square root of 110 over 10. Okay. Okay, number 10. So let's see, we're going to subtract 7. So I have 10k squared equals negative 63. So k squared equals negative 63 over 10. So we've got k equals plus or minus the square root of negative 63 over 10. All right, now we've got to simplify that. That's plus or minus the square root of negative 63 over the square root of 10. We good so far? Okay, let me see if I can blow this up for you. Okay, so let's see here. Working on the top, I've got negative, so I'm going to take an I out. All right. So let's work with the square root of 63. So I factor that down. 63 is 9 times 7. Do we know the square root of 9? It's 3. So we can take that 3 out, but I can't do anything with the 7. So it's going to be 3 square root of 7i over the square root of 10. Okay. Now we could have dealt with the square root of 10 first, but that's going to make simplifying the square root of negative 630 a little bit harder. So I'll simplify first, okay? So now we're ready to go ahead, move and remove. So plus or minus 3 square root of 7i. I'm moving the square root of 10 up, and I'm going to remove that square root from the denominator. Okay, move and remove. Can you all remember that? Move and remove? Okay. So we need to multiply everything together up here. I've got plus or minus 3. I can multiply my square roots, so I end up with the square root of 70i over 10. Okay. We cannot simplify that any further. So we cannot simplify the 70 and the 10 because it's not 70 over 10. It's the square root of 70. So they don't reduce. And I can't simplify the square root of 70. That's 35 times 2. 35 is 7 times 5. These are all prime numbers. None of them are coming out of the square root. Okay? So this is my final answer. Okay? Yes?
So you put the I next to that 3, right?
We put the I after, well, this is the correct form, excuse me, where the I is in the back. Okay? Now, it is acceptable to put that I in front of the square root. The only reason it's acceptable there is so that we don't confuse whether or not that I is under the square root, under the radical. Okay. But this is more correct. I will not take points off for that. Alex, yes.
So for like number 8, it has to be where it is. It can't go next to the 67.
You mean like there?
No, like the other.
Like up here?
Yeah. That incorrect if it's there.
It could go there.
Okay.
Yeah, it could go there. That'd be all right. Okay. Other questions before I give you your quiz? Okay. Let's do it. You can use your calculator if you'd like.